Hi, Davi here, and today we have a new episode in the Art Review series. And today we'll be checking out the work of Joshua Black or Josh Hunter Black. Now, I actually found this guy first via Twitter or X, and then I stumbled upon his like this page on Instagram much later. But he does focus a lot on human anatomy. I'm not sure if this guy is some kind of teacher or art sort of like professor somewhere because it seems like he's focused a lot on breaking down the human figure a lot, portraits, like muscle anatomy. Um, I see some Bridgman work here, um, and even some animal studies here and there. But I think they are some kind of teacher. I believe. Uh, it kind of they do remind me of another artist named Michael Hampton. I think he has a book called Design Invention, something Design and Invention, and that was one of the early sort of influences I've had in regards to human anatomy. Aside from like Bridgman as well, but I guess Josh does remind me of that guy as well. Whenever he does his breakdowns, like you can see him like uh, it's not always like these types of gestural drawings. Sometimes he will do these, and sometimes he will do more like rendered stuff like this, and the full-on paintings like this guy, right? And I just like the way he does it. It seems so manageable. Like you can do it yourself. And I think it's because he does break it down to um like he always finds a way to show that you can see that thing as either a circle, a triangle, or a square as you can see here. Um Although as you get better at figure drawing, you will get like the nuances of these lines, right? Of like how the leg is sort of shaped, how the torso is. Like each muscle has sort of a unique kind of curve to like each side. But that's really a product of I believe experience. But aside from that, like before that, you can achieve like good sort of mannequins, kind of like this one, with just straight lines that are either like triangles or that end up becoming like triangles, circles, or squares, or um I'm trying to find a word for a 3D form of a triangle. I forgot the name, but we have boxes, spheres, and cones. Oh shit, cones. I think that's the proper term. But yeah, I like the breakdown. I think I like these breakdowns better than these ones because how often do you actually see like the muscles of anything, right? Unless they're super ripped. I mean, it kind of makes sense if you're doing like comics, especially like superhero types of stuff. But because it's very common to have like super buff, super like vascular, muscular types of human figures when you do that kind of thing. And he also has a habit of, let me just show this. He has a habit of showing the perspective or where the rotation is. Like whenever you do this kind of line, you are showing the perspective. So you can clearly see as you go to the top. Let me just use my pen somewhere here, but found it. As you go further top, the circles kind of go this way, but as you go further bottom, it goes more like this. And that's because you can see like the top plane of this sort of circle, and you can see the bottom plane of this circle. So it's a great way to sort of indicate the perspective and where the forms are kind of going, right? Yeah, I like this style of breakdown better. Like it does take into account like the major parts of like the body without necessarily going into detail on like the muscle on the specific like muscles and everything, It's much more accessible and much more realistic, I think, or practical rather. And there is a sense of realism too. For example, for these ones, again, you're gonna have to do a lot of like reference studies to help you capture like the nuances of these like lines. Let me just show you. Right? Like yeah, it's still like a curve, but what kind of curve is it? Is it like a straight curve? is like a curve that goes here, and then there's like a sharp turn here. It's kind of hard to say, but there are like little nuances. For example, this part over here has like a that, and then you have like that. You know, it's these sorts of subtle uh twists in where the line ends up that help you understand what that thing is, right? Like obviously this thing here is to indicate the calf, and it's much more prominent, I guess, in the inside of the leg than on the outside. On the outside, it's much more smoother and blends more into the ankle. So these are things you learn a lot from doing figure studies. Yeah, again with these circular lines, it's not necessary, but it just helps to guide you, I guess. And I like how his gestures feel so. There's a bit of a hierarchy. Like for example, there's a lighter gray here for the shading for maybe the initial block in, and then some like the final gesture, right? Um, to sort of capture the main edge, I guess. Like you will see this with a lot of traditional like artists who do a lot of figure drawing. They will use the side of the pencil to sort of sketch the main sort of like lines and forms, and then they will use like the point of it to make this finer, darker sort of contour lines to finalize, I guess, uh the lines, contour lines. Yeah, there's so much work here to study, and I think he also referenced another artist named Will something, Will Weston. I've heard a lot of people mention that guy, and I think I don't know. I'm gonna have to do or check out his work because I think he also does the same thing where he teaches human anatomy. So there you go. Um, so here you have some studies of the head, right, the back even. And whenever you do studies, it can be kind of this messy where you're sort of studying a bunch of random things sometimes. Like you don't always have to have a consistent page where everything is like organized. Because sometimes I have to remember that when I see like super organized stuff, it's meant to be that way because you want to present it to an audience, right? But for most studies, it's gonna be somewhat random, somewhat unclean, and somewhat disorganized, just because it's not really for other people; it's really for you. So that's just something that I should keep in mind, and I think you should keep in mind as well. You know. When it comes to their brush, I think they're using some kind of flat brush, but the end has a bit of a fade to it. So it looks more like a charcoal brush, or it looks like they're using a side of a pencil, right? So I do like that look. I think Michael Hampton does the same thing. It just looks really cool. Uh, and yeah, I think even Emilio. I need to write these people's names. Emilio Dekure. I believe I did an art review of his work too. Dekure. He also teaches a lot of human anatomy. Will Weston. Will Weston. I'm just typing it down here. And Michael Hampton. Hampton. Oh shit, maybe Steve Houston. Steve. Hopefully, I'm saying his name right. Or because wait, the last name is sort of like I don't know if I'm saying the. I think it's Houston. Let me just put a question mark. Um, yeah, pretty cool. This guy looks like Wolverine. You know, just by the mask, right? I love the muscles. Pretty cool. Like you don't have to draw like the striations of the muscles, but you know, it looks cool, right? Yeah. Just having some coffee here. Oh, some clothing studies here, a shoe study too. Oh, maybe TB Choi. She also does a lot of like human figure studies, and I also think she does teach. So there you go. So some fabric studies, fold studies, maybe. Yeah, they're so cool. I mean, look at the way he's able to simplify the feet. it's always like a hard thing for me uh to do. Both hands and feet. I mean, I know you can break it down to like spheres and something, but it's so hard to do. And even this touch of shadow over here. Let me just bring out my pen. Like this core shadow. Like it just makes your figure drawing study a lot more refined, right? Like you could just not shade it, but it just makes it look way better. And if you have like a good gesture, why not spend a little bit of time doing a quick render, right? Just the shadows, kind of like this one. It just makes it all worth it. In a way, it's like a reward, to be able to make this dark indentation and then shade a light value, uh, right beside that, kind of like here. To me, that's a very sort of fulfilling and lovely feeling. And also being able to draw figures not just in this size, but in like this size and even this size. Uh, because I think when you're so good at doing this, you'll notice that when you start drawing like figures to indicate some kind of scale, maybe you're doing an environment or something, or maybe you're doing characters to fill up a background, you'll notice you'll have a hard time drawing like figures that are small that actually look like people. So I think it's sort of its own challenge to be able to draw figures from a distance while making it look like actual people. Well, this guy has some a nice set of come on. Let me just move on. Shoe studies. Like you don't have to go into this. You have to remember this guy. Number one may really be into it. Number one, but also I think they also teach. So don't assume you have to be this good to start doing your own like character art or something, right? Uh, Obviously, because they're very into this sort of thing, they're gonna be really good at human anatomy. Just don't be um like it's its own skill, and you don't have to go far or go deep this far. Because someone mentioned before that it's just something to keep in mind that yeah, these drawings look great, but you'll notice, let's say character designers, if you ask them to draw something like this, from imagination, they will draw something that's pretty good, better than the average artist, but they're not going to be as competent as, say, someone who does this mainly. So don't assume. I think this is more of an advice for beginners. Um, because I think you can get lost. I mean, in this sort of thing where you're so good at drawing human anatomy, but you actually deep down you just want to create like your own characters without being so like realistic this way, right? I guess you just want to be aware of what you want. Um, like for example, this part over here, like how the leg is done. Let me just open this in a new tab. Like this part over here, like this is enough. A lot of like pro artists, specifically character designers, or those who do anime. If you look at how they start their figures, it's usually like this freaking basic, even less. Like they're not even good. The anatomy isn't even always like right. So just something to consider. Now, obviously, the more you want to add realism to your work, the more these types of things matter, right? But I guess that's why, let's say in animation, like to the animation, people advise like gestures a lot because you don't have to be super accurate with the anatomy. It's more about the emotion, the feeling. Right? Especially if it's like narrative driven or story driven. Anatomy can take a backseat a little bit, not too much, but the point is you don't have to be super like you don't have to know every single muscle, right? I do like it when they add colors because it helps you see or ways to chunk out the body or the muscles. But sometimes it can go too far where I don't know. It's just too much information, maybe. Um, because there are mannequins or breakdowns of human figures that just make more sense. that when you try it yourself, it just flows naturally, you know? So I do recommend actually expanding and just looking at other or how other artists break down their own figures because you're gonna stick to something that's gonna be easy to you. So yeah, it's more about not forcing yourself to draw a certain way, especially if it's not what comes naturally to you, right? Yeah, expand your knowledge, expand your skills, but that can only go so far, you know? You want to actually accept that you have certain tendencies and make use of it instead of like pushing those things away. Oh, I love the kind of bleeds here, or they look like bleeds, but they remind me of ballpoint pen. I guess Steve Houston, because he does like drawing with like a G Tech something. Is it a G Tech or a G Pilot something pen? Basically a ballpoint pen or a gel pen, and you see a lot of these bleeds. It looks kind of dirty, sure, but it has a certain look that I don't know. It looks so cool. And even if they're not complete like drawings, right? Like they're not rendered fully, they're sort of just studies. They look so aesthetically pleasing. And I think that's what you learned. It's not really, it's not always about the anatomy or the story, even or the gesture. It's about how can you make a sketch look aesthetically pleasing, And I think that's something you also learn from doing a lot of gesture um, drawings. Because yeah, there are poses that are just naturally boring, but if you can draw it a certain way, even if it's pretty much the same pose, uh, it shows that you know how to make something even more interesting, right? Even if the pose itself is kind of like this one, it's just the guy sort of spreading himself out or pulling something. I guess is working out. Not really a super interesting pose, but because of the way it's drawn, like it makes you want to look at it. You know, like it looks aesthetic. Number one, the lines are not even all the same width. They're sort of a natural ebb and flow. It becomes thick on one side and then tapers into a fine point, right? And also the shading, I think, matters a lot. I mean, look at this. The core shadows here. Let me just with the pen. Core shadows, right? And then the reflected lighting over here. Ooh, it's so hot. I mean, even these like rib cage, like the gills, they look like gills to me. Freaking cool. Core shadow again. Core shadow. Ooh, reflected lighting here coming from the bottom. Oh, yeah, or maybe some other light source, whatever. Look at that. Core shadow. Ooh. Oh shit, I forgot Proko. Proko is a good example. Also, let me just write his name. Proko. Prokopenko something. Proko. Proko. I think he likes doing stuff traditionally with a charcoal pencil. And I think most people know Proko by now. He has a super big channel, so there you go. Yeah, some animal studies here and there, but I think his main thing is going to be human figures. But the thing is, when you do human anatomy, you will realize that we're kind of similar. Like they have human, like we have legs, we have like arms, uh, and even like reptiles, mammals. It does change a little bit, when you look at birds or something. Well, I think it's because of the feathers. It's hard to see what their body is, but they still have the same thing, like legs, uh, arms. So some head studies here. Right? Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And again, you're gonna have to when you're doing these studies, keep it simple. Don't use just stick to one brush. In this case, is using his favorite sort of flat brush with a a faded out tip on one side. And it just helps you focus more on the subject than, worrying about like a brush variety or something. And I think that's kind of my weakness sometimes because I just like playing around with too many brushes. Ooh, I like the contrast of this one. Very cool. Very lots of curves. But oh, Vlad Gheneli, Vlad Gheneli, Vlad Gheneli. Hopefully, I'm saying the last name right. I think it's Romanian or something. Who knows? But yeah. Sometimes he'll do color stuff, but I think he mostly sticks to his like grayscale studies, drawings, breakdowns. Oh, he has a Gumroad, so if you're looking for tutorials on how to do this kind of thing. But I think I did mention this early in the episode. He does have a YouTube channel. It's linked in the bio of this Instagram page. So I haven't seen it, so I just wanted to really just explore the Instagram page for myself. Oh, that back. Oh, different body types here. Very interesting. I do like it. Let me just open this in a new tab. Yeah, I think this is also an important part of human figure drawing studies. Um, you don't want to focus always on super muscular people. I mean, it helps because obviously it's easier to see the muscle insertions, right? So these are great. But for example, like this part over here, or for example, for the belly of this woman, you can tell this one seems a little more flat or stretched out because she's literally like bending her back. But this one, it's not as obvious. Or maybe it's not going too far back, just because you see more of the belly sort of there, where it's less stretched out. So you sort of miss these things when the thing you're studying or your reference is too muscular, where they don't even have fat. So studying like fat or heavy set people, I think is a good thing to do as well because it shows you how fat goes around the muscle. And it's not just like people with more fat, but also, excuse me, clothed people. Because if you get too focused on this, you will realize that um, most people, most of the subjects you will draw for most like artists do have clothes. So how do clothes go around muscle and fat, right? And clothes come in even more like they're way more varied. They're way more diverse than say muscle and fat. So um, yeah, just something to consider. Zooming out again, you see this value variety. Some parts are really dark, some parts are, basically just the white paper or the canvas in the background, right? It has a nice range to it. There's a strong contrast to it. That's why it looks really attractive. And yeah, can you make quick drawings like these studies look good? And if you can, if you try illustrating something else, it's gonna transfer, I think. That's my theory anyway. And yeah, look at how he's able to do this with just his favorite, like one brush. And again, it's emphasizing, if you look at the arrows here or these extra lines, he's trying to emphasize like the form or the flow of the gesture, right? The perspective sort of thing. Uh, really cool stuff. It's so attractive. Yeah, so I guess that's just for this RTV. Oh, this one's okay too. Oh wow, super jacked. One day, it must be nice. I saw a post on Instagram. It was a reel or something, but it said you're not depressed. You're just not jacked. And the people were commenting like the feeling of having your chest be way bigger, like it's big enough that you can't even see your own abs, Like it's a completely different feeling. Like one day, oh, I'm gonna be so, oh, like you have no idea. Like it's like every guy's dream to be not super like beefy, but just to, have a little bit of some there. And it's not just for the ladies. It's just nice to, look at yourself in the mirror, if you know what I mean. And check yourself out. Come on. Come on. And imagine if you're an artist and you're somewhat jacked or fit, you can just reference yourself, right? That would be so that's such a flex, right? Um, love the back muscles here, how it sort of folds the skin. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Like how does skin or how does muscle and fat affect the skin, right? If you need a reason to do gesture drawings, human figure drawings, studies, check out the work of Joshua Black or Josh Hunter Black. Hunter Black. Full name. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.